Both of them obtained the following academic degrees: Doctor of Philosophy in Theoretical Physics and Master of Science in Physics from the State University of New York at Albany, USA, and Bachelor of Science in Physics from the University of the Philippines at Diliman. Both of them were also conferred the degrees of Doctor of Humanities honoris causa by the Holy Angel University and Doctor of Pedagogy honoris causa by Ateneo de Naga University. While teaching in UP Diliman, they both received the Academic Award in Physics from the National Research Council of the Philippines. Dr. Chris was named Outstanding Young Scientist for Physics by the National Academy of Science and Technology of the Philippines and was the first director of the UP National Institute of Physics. They are both regular associates of the International Center of Theoretical Physics in Trieste, Italy. Both have also been research fellows of the Alexander von Humboldt Foundation in Germany, as well as exchange scientists in Japan under the joint program of the Department of Science and Technology and the Japan Society for the Promotion of Science. They have presented scientific papers and given seminars in different countries. In 2010, they were conferred the Ramon Magsaysay Award, Asia's premier prize for service for the Dynamic Learning Program. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dr. Christopher Bernido and Dr. Maria Victoria Carpio-Bernido. Good afternoon. Okay, so now we'll bring in the other panelists. The Education Program Specialist in Science of DepEd Division of Bohol, Dr. Hermenilda Gracio. Let me bring in one more panelist, the Junior High School Principal of the Davao Christian High School. We heard him speak yesterday, Mr. Desi Magnaye.
Hi, good afternoon, Ms. Steph, Sir Chris,
Good
Ma'am Vic, Dr. Gracio.
Good afternoon, Desi.
Magandang hapon.
Okay. Meron po tayo mga katanungan na pending also from yesterday. So, to Dr. Chris and Dr. Marivic, first question is, what is the difference between the teacher's lesson plan and the learning activity sheet?
Well, the difference between the teacher's lesson plan and the learning activity sheets is quite big in a sense. The teacher's plan is being prepared by the teacher, having in mind as an audience the supervisor or principal. So they're doing that because they have as a reader in mind their supervisors. On the other hand, for the learning activity sheets of the CVIF-DLP, when it is composed and created, the teacher should have in mind the students. It is almost like the teacher is talking individually to each student. So the perspective is different in that sense. And when the division of Bohol in 2011 implemented the dynamic learning program, one of the comments of the DepEd superintendent at that time was, well, maybe the incentive for the public school teachers in Bohol would be is that they don't have to make the lesson plans. Why? Because the LAS, the collection of learning activities, is something like a detailed lesson plan day to day where the learning target, learning competencies of the DepEd is already being addressed to. So that's even something like a comprehensive lesson plan. So there are slight similarities, but the perspective is quite different.
Thank you, sir. So si Sir Chris mentioned the DepEd Division of Bohol. So punta naman ako kay Dr. Gracia. How did you go about developing the learning activity sheets in Bohol? Kasi noon po, hindi pa po available, no? Widely available yung mga learning activity sheets na pre-developed. Paano nyo po ginawa yun sa Bohol?
Okay po, good afternoon. Talaga po yung pag-start ng Bohol, with the assistance, of course, with Dr. Bernido, the couple, no? Because we really had at first time, we do a lot of orientation, first from the division supervisors level, the district supervisors, then the different school heads, because in the division of Bohol, we only implemented for the secondary schools alone, not the elementary and the senior high school. So we did a lot of process. Considering Bohol is a big division, we have a lot of schools During that time, there were only 157 secondary schools. For this time, we already have 182. So we requested with the partnership of the local government unit, the provincial government unit for the budget, we invited Dr. Bernido, the couple, to assist us in the crafting of the activity sheets. Because they really did not give us the sample of the activity sheets, but they really wanted us to undergo the process of how to craft the learning activity sheets. It did a lot of time, no? We have a lot of process there. We have produced some learning activity sheets, but it doesn't end there. The following year, we conducted another activity sheets. We submitted to them for correction, for enhancement, and then we submitted to them again. We always revise and improve. But then we did not say at this time that these are all perfect because we always keep on improving. We give the feedback of our teachers as to how did they, because these are guides only for the teachers, and then they are given the empowerment. They are authorized, or they are given the chance to improve that would really suit to their learners. What is important of the learning activity sheets that we made is that the teachers are already having their own copy, no? That throughout the division, all learning activity sheets are uniform from grade 7, grade 8, and all learning activities because we choose writers for every learning areas with the supervision of the couple. That's it.
Thank you, Dr. Gracio.
So,
Sir Desi, I'm sure that a
welcome po.
lot of those who want to implement the dynamic learning program would want to know how they're going to communicate this with the parents and the students when they do orientation. So maybe you can share first what were the reactions of the parents and the students when they were asked to do the learning activity sheets, and maybe you can give some tips on how you can share it and you can inform the parents about using the learning activity sheets this coming school year.
Okay. So when we started the LP in 2005, of course, we were not surprised that there were a lot of violent reactions, especially the older students, because they were not used to copying a lot. That's why in the beginning, we were even forced not to let them copy, but instead give them printouts, which was later on we realized not a very good idea because when we shifted to copying, that's when we realized that our students are learning more. However, it was challenging, but I think one key ingredient really was being teachers and the administrators being able to communicate this well to students and to parents. I would remember when I was still teaching, and even up to now, our teachers would conduct orientations of rules for strategic learning. Isa to sa natutunan ko kanila, Sir Chris and Mama Rivic, wherein kailangan ni-explain sa mga bata kung ano yung mga rason at mga basis kung bakit kailangan nilang gawin ito. For example, bakit kailangan nating kopyahin yung lesson? So nabibigyan sila ng rason. Hindi nila iniisip na the school is letting us do this kasi pinapahirapan nila tayo, or hindi ito pinapagawa ng school dahil si teacher walang prepare na lesson, for example. So kung alam nila yung mga reason na yon, mas nagiging open sila kung bakit nila kailangan gawin ito. And one of the things that we would also do is to conduct this orientation even to teachers to remind ourselves of the basis. That's why for parents, we do the same thing. I guess what I want to point out here is the clear communication between the school and the stakeholders so that they'll be able to understand, because it is very unconventional. Pinapakopya, maraming independent student activities, which is hindi yun yung mga na-experience ng mga parents when they were going to school. That's why we had to do this explaining so that it will be more clear to them.
Thank you, Sir Desi. Ituloy ko na, no? Dr. Chris, Dr. Marivic, bakit kailangan bang kopyahin ang learning activity sheets? Lahat ba ng nakalagay sa activity sheet kailangan kopyahin as is ng mga bata?
Copying is a very important component because there are a lot of scientific studies in the past 10 years which shows that copying by hand is superior to even keyboarding using the laptop. I will repeat again one of the studies. I mentioned this during the first day. There was a paper which appeared in Psychological Science, which shows that the handwriting, copying by hand, is good for retention, understanding, comprehension, and even analysis when it comes to a certain topic. And there was a study by Mueller and Oppenheimer. It involved 300 students from Princeton and University of California, Los Angeles. And the result was that comparing two groups, one doing the copying and one doing the keyboarding, that indeed writing by hand is superior. That's only one of the many studies, and there are studies ranging from kindergarten, young children, all the way to university students, which proves that handwriting is important in learning. So this component of the dynamic learning program is already incorporated. It's automatic in the CBIF DLP. Now, that's from the learning point of view. So even without pandemic, we already incorporated the writing. But now, in the new normal, during the pandemic, that writing by hand actually assumes a more important role. For example, during the pandemic, we are often asked, what is the guarantee that the students are learning? That's question number one. Question number two is, how can we assess our students when they are at home and there's a lockdown? So those two questions, what's the guarantee that the students are learning? And the second question, how do we assess them? Is answered by this writing. Because writing, in terms of assessment, if you are only thinking about midterms or finals, and then you discover that the students failed, it's too late. 2 months have already been wasted. A semester has already been wasted. So it's too late. But if the students copy every day, every subject, page by page, then actually those pages, once collected and returned to the subject teacher once a week, can be assessed. So there's a daily assessment of the progress of the students. And the writing, the learning activity sheets that are copied by hand is also a guarantee that the students are also learning. Remember that if you just do lecturing, and I often say this, that for decades teachers have been lecturing, but then we did very poorly in the PISA, in the Program for International Student Assessment. Now, if you rely on Zoom or Google Meet for lecturing, it is a worse scenario. And moreover, there are a lot of children who do not have connectivity. So the writing by hand is a guarantee that the students are learning. The writing by hand is also the form of assessment for the teachers every week, with or without midterm, maybe because of the pandemic conditions.
Ma'am Marivic, you want to add anything?
No. Well,
Okay.
what came to my mind is that although the pandemic emphasized the need for this writing by hand, and Chris mentioned that there are now studies within the past 10 years. When we introduced the DLP in 2002, it was really just by gut feel, by intuition and from personal experience and the observing students in the Philippines, in Germany, in Japan, in the US, in other countries, observing how they would learn. So we were very happy when the scientific studies validated what we designed for the DLP, because from the beginning, we wanted to have high performance levels for our students. That's all I wanted to say.
Maybe I could add a little bit. For those schools who are already implementing the DLP, that's no problem, because they know that there's going to be a lot of writing. But for those schools who would be new to the DLP, or who are not intending to adopt the DLP, I'm sure that whether they like it or not, they will be sending materials to the students. Now, teachers, the subject teachers should visualize the student, an individual student at home, looking at the material that you sent. Now, if the subject teacher is sending a material which would require lecture, that means these are materials which have been there for the past decade and which have been used by teachers in a traditional manner. If the material requires a lecture, then I think that's bound to fail. That's really bound to fail. If it failed in the traditional setting where the teachers are allowed to lecture 100% of the time, if it failed there, then those materials would also not be effective. So maybe for those who would like to send materials, aside from visualizing the the the, the effect on the student, try to compose these learning activity sheets such that there's only one concept per page, and normally we have the title and the target and short concept notes so that it would be digestible to the student.
Thank you, Sir Chris. Actually, I was going to ask that because there's a lot of questions on how you can teach complex tasks using the learning activity sheets, but you answer that you have to break it down into simpler activities. And my appreciation is that when the students do learning activity sheets, it's 100% feedback from all of the students immediately. We have a question from Facebook for Dr. Gracio. Curious lang po ako kung paano mag-conduct ng classroom observation tool ang aming mga school heads sa ganitong platform ng pagtuturo. From Agnes Clapano of ALS Sinakaban, Misamis Occidental. Sige, Dr. Gracio.
Siguro po kasi, thank you for that question. Ang mangyayari po kasi sa ngayong pandemic, wala po tayong classroom. Kasi nasa home po ang mga learners, di ba po? So, ang pinaka-basis po ng ating mga principal or yung master teacher or the head teacher to monitor on the accomplishment of the learners as well as the teacher is the portfolio, the submission of the portfolio as to what competencies have been tackled, is that within the budget of work, something like that. Not necessarily in the classroom setting. It should be the activity sheets, the answers, or how far have the learners responded in the activity sheets. That is for my opinion po.
Thank you, Dr. Gracio. Sir Desi, you have anything to add to that? Ganon din po ba sa inyo, sa Davao Christian?
Yes, I think one of the things that I want to emphasize here, the beauty of the dynamic learning program is observation or evaluation becomes non-invasive. So anong ibig sabihin ko na non-invasive? In a traditional classroom observation, ang nangyayari is a teacher is told when the master teacher or the principal will enter the class. And of course, you will do everything to prepare for that one-day observation. And most of the time, if not always, it goes well. In DLP, while there are still classroom observation, mas binibigyan ng weight yung daily activities na binibigay sa bata. Ibig sabihin nito, just by looking at the learning activity sheets, pwede nating makita from the beginning until the end kung natatakal lahat ng lessons, if the complex lesson is broken down into simple activities that can be seen in the submission of the teachers. So I think as someone who is tasked to evaluate teachers, I would spend more time making sure that the learning activities that we provide our students are okay. And that's why evaluation becomes different in that aspect.
Sir Desi, thank you. Ituloy mo na. The question looming in every teacher's mind today is how are you aligning your learning activity sheets to the MELC or the most essential learning competencies? Ano po yung process ninyo sa Davao Christian?
Okay. So, syempre we follow the DepEd K-12 curriculum. And because of the new normal, naglabas ang DepEd ng MELCs or most essential learning competencies. ang laging naaalala ko pag nagra-write shop tayo sa DLP is meron kasing misconception ng ibang teacher na pag sinabi mong most essential learning competencies ay magbabawas ka lang para mas konti yung i-discuss mo. I think what is important here is I think I can summarize it in 2 or 3 questions. Number 1, ano yung pinaka-importanting lessons na kailangang matutunan ng bata for that school year? At kung na-pinpoint na natin kung ano ang pinaka-importanting lessons, what learning activities can we have in order to reach that required competency? Pangalawa is ano yung mga lessons na pwede nating ituro sa subject natin so that there is built-in review. Anong ibig kong sabihin po dito? For example, I'm teaching physics and I teach the 4 kinematic equations. Habang tinuturo ko yan, pwede kong gamitin ang lesson sa math na equations para ma-strengthen yung math skills ng bata. So kahit nasa physics class kami, natututo pa rin sila ng math at nare-reach pa rin nila yung competency na kailangan nila. Pangatlo ay ano dapat yung ma-master, what are the lessons that need to be mastered this school year? So when I was revising my physics syllabus, those are the questions that I would always think about so that once I see the MELCs, I can think of activities that I can have so that we can reach the required competency. And that's how we do it in Davao Christian High School, and I'm sure in many schools as well.
Thank you, Sir Desi.